Hey Hylians! At this point, we all know that there are many different Princesses of Hyrule throughout the Zelda series, and while all being named Zelda, each is their own character, a new princess with her own story, her own legend. One may be sailing the seas in disguise, and another may be waiting in a tower surrounded by twilight, while another may be desperately trying to awaken her powers. Throughout the series, we have gotten to see and know many different girls holding the name Zelda. But today I want to go all the way back to 1987 to talk about a very interesting princess. One forgotten by not only many fans, but possibly also the people of Hyrule. Today, let's talk about Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link's Sleeping Princess Zelda. Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link is the sequel to the original Legend of Zelda, and its story follows on a couple of years after that original game. But although the original story connects directly to this new one, the story within Zelda 2 actually starts long before Link ever gets involved. So let's quickly go over the story and events leading up to Adventure of Link's main plot point, the Sleeping Princess. Long ago, before the events of the original Zelda, the King of Hyrule at the time decided to hide the Triforce of Courage within the Great Palace, as a way to avoid evil from getting its hands on it. When the King of Hyrule passed away, his son, the Prince of Hyrule, decided to try and find the Triforce of Courage, but had no luck. The only people aware of the Triforce's location were the King of Hyrule and his daughter Princess Zelda. So with no luck finding it on his own, the Prince of Hyrule tried to get his sister to tell him the location of the Triforce. But Zelda refused to tell him. Angered by his sister's defiance, the prince tried to use the power of a wizard to threaten the location of the Triforce out of his sister, but she still refused to tell him. With another refusal from the princess, the wizard cast a spell over her that sent her into a deep sleep. But with the magic he used being so powerful, the wizard shortly died after. With no one to reverse the spell, the prince started to regret what he had done, and so placed his sleeping sister within the North Castle. There she would stay and continue to sleep for many years. It is at this point that the Prince of Hyrule declares that all women born into the royal family of Hyrule must be named Zelda, in honor of his sister. Now, because Zelda 2 follows on from the original and came out directly after it, it's a common thing that a lot of people seem to think that the princess you save within the original Legend of Zelda and the princess you save within Adventure of Link are the same person. It doesn't help that they also use pretty much the same artwork for both of them, but these two are completely different people. During the events of the original Legend of Zelda, the princess we see within Adventure of Link was already sleeping in the North Castle, and had been for many years. With the wizard who cast the spell on her long dead, the only way to awaken the sleeping princess would be reuniting and using the complete Triforce. And of course, the last part of the Triforce of Courage, was hidden by the King of Hyrule long ago. This princess and the situation surrounding her has always been very interesting to me. For one, we don't exactly know just how long she's been sleeping in the North Castle for. It seems to have been at least a couple of generations, as we see in all new Zelda within the original Legend of Zelda, but what if it's even longer? We see on the timeline that these events happened before the original game, but still there could be countless years between when this happened and when the original game takes place. Not to mention also the years between the original game and Adventure of Link, when we first see and learn of her. If the events that led to the princess being sent to sleep happened that long ago, then the princess has still been asleep within the castle for possibly hundreds or thousands of years, as the Adventure of Link takes place right at the very end of the Downfall timeline. There could be many events happening within those unseen years that haven't been added to the timeline yet. Because let's face it, the Zelda timeline is less of a timeline and more of a very vague outline of how things could happen in a timeline, as we have seen things move around before. But that's a whole video for another time. Another question surrounding her situation is, how is she still alive? There must be something helping her. It could simply be that the spell placed on her by the wizard also had the effect of keeping her alive, but I feel it's much more likely that it's her divine blood. As a princess of Hyrule, she is a descendant of the goddess Hylia. It could be that with the spell placed on her, her body used some of its own magic to keep her alive for all of that time. This wouldn't be the only time we've seen a Zelda do something like this, as in Skyward Sword, Zelda seals herself away and sleeps for countless years while waiting for Link. And there must have been something at play when Zelda was fighting Calamity Ganon for 100 years, as she hasn't aged a day when we see her at the end of the game. Her power also adds in more questions around her and other Zeldas, saying she could have been around sleeping in the castle for hundreds or thousands of years. In that time, many other princesses would come and go, all of them having the divine power of the goddess. Now, we don't know exactly how the powers of each princess work. They could disappear or lessen as they age, or they could keep them at full power till they die. We also don't even know if all Zeldas have the exact same powers as their ancestors, or if they are slightly different between each person. When Zelda was sleeping in the North Castle for all of that time, and other princesses would be born into the royal family, would they have the same power as her and her ancestors? At first I thought maybe not. Maybe none of the princesses born into the royal family would have any powers, because this Zelda was still alive with them. But then I remembered that they must have gotten something, as the princess we save in the original Legend of Zelda had the power to split the Triforce of Wisdom into 8 pieces, something that must have taken a large amount of power to do. So even when the princess we see in Adventure of Link was sleeping in the North Castle, princesses born into the royal family must have gotten the powers of the goddess. Meaning that even when one was locked away, there could have been multiple Princess Zeldas with the divine powers of Hylia alive at the same time. Something we haven't actually seen before in a game. No matter when the princess fell asleep, whether at 10 years, 100 years, or 1,000 years though, why did no one wake her up? Well, as stated before, the Triforce would be needed, and not just a single piece, but the full thing. And the only 2 people who knew the location of the final piece were dead and cursed. It would not have been easy to find it even after many years. That, and no one could exactly get to her. The door that closed the room she was sleeping in for all of those years was only opened when Link put his hand on it, so even if they did find the Triforce, it's not certain they could have even gotten into the princess to use it on her. After turning 16, the image of the Triforce appeared on Link's hand, and when showing it to Impa, the nursemaid of the current Princess Zelda saved in the original game, she told him the story of the sleeping princess, and took him to the North Castle. And it was only when Link placed his hand on the door that it finally opened, after countless years of being sealed. There seemed to be some kind of magical seal on the door, or even the entire room that she was sleeping in. A seal that could only be broken by someone with the mark of the Triforce, or perhaps it was only this Link that could open it, adding yet another layer as to why she was not woken sooner. We have seen the goddesses seemingly plan out events years ahead of when they would occur, so maybe the goddesses or some kind of magic around Zelda herself made it so only this particular Link would be able to open it, even if others had tried before him. Something like this could add to why Impa took him to the castle to start with. Maybe other Links had tried in the past, and so she wanted to see if this new hero could finally open the door, and to her surprise, he could. To add to this, the way Link finds out about where the Triforce of Courage is hidden is from some old writings from the past king, that are said to be only able to be read by a future king of Hyrule. At the time of the Adventure of Link, Link is still a hero and not connected to the royal family, but maybe in the future he would marry into the royal family, or perhaps there is even more to this Link that we don't first realise, and he's actually somehow related to the Hylian royal family already. All of these circumstances could be adding to a plan that might have been created by the goddesses. We don't know why, but it's an interesting extra detail around this particular Link. But along with all the questions about what could have happened when she was asleep, there's also all the questions about what could happen once she's awake. The game ends as soon as Link wakes her up, so we don't get to see what could happen after, and at this point we don't have any games taking place after Adventure of Link in that timeline, not counting Breath of the Wild, as that game's timeline placement is yet to be completely confirmed. The big thing which interests me is the fact that we have two different Princess Zeldas alive at the same time, who most likely both still have their divine powers. There are many things that could happen with two different Zeldas from different times. They could work together or turn against each other. It's something that I'd really be interested in seeing in a game at some point. Somewhat expanding on the relationship between Princess Zelda and Princess Hilda in A Link Between Worlds. The Sleeping Princess of Adventure of Link is, in my opinion, one of the most interesting princesses in the series, solely for the mysteries and possibilities surrounding her. It's a shame that she's become somewhat forgotten by many over time, being mistaken simply as the princess from the original game. Her story is important, as it connects all the Zeldas after her, and was written to be the original legend of the series, the legend of the Sleeping Princess Zelda, the original origin of the name. Hey Hylians! Thank you all for watching this video all the way to the end. The Adventure of Link is a game that I've not spoken about much on my channel before, so it's nice to finally have this chance. Please tell me your thoughts and theories on this forgotten princess down in the comments below, and if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe for even more Zelda content from myself. Before we go, I want to give a little shout out and thank you to the lovely Gamescapes who recently made this very cute bit of fan art for me in the Wind Waker style. It's absolutely adorable and I love it, so thank you ever so much for making me this lovely bit of artwork. Thank you all once again for watching all the way to the end of this video. I hope you've all enjoyed it. Don't forget to tell me your thoughts and theories on this character down in the comments below, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye!